So when I'm adding Cal Hypo, let's talk a little bit about powdered because I think that's more of what the guys are looking for. And Billy, this question is for you. I was thinking about you when I came with this one. So when adding Cal Hypo into the pool, whether it's granular or powder, what is the best form to or best way to add it into the pool? So is it going to be a skimmer? You're going to disperse it?
Yep. So just like any other chemical, you want to make sure the water balance is where it needs to be. And when we're talking about water balance for Cal Hypo, it's a exact 180 in terms of thinking as far as water balance is concerned. A lot of your guys that are watching and thinking about making the transition to Cal Hypo from dichlor and trichlor, most of them are used to using a very acidic product with that trichlor and dichlor. And because it's very acidic and it will tend to drive down the pH, they tend to want to run their pools at higher pH and total alkalinity levels and use trichlor as kind of the buffer or to drive down the pH and get it into the range that gets you to your midpoint on your measurements. So if we're talking 7.2 to 7.8 and TA, 80 to 120 parts per million for your ranges, when you're using trichlor and dichlor, you're tend to going to run those pools at 7.8 to 8 on the pH scale, and your alkalinity 100 to 120 parts per million, and then your trichlor, is the acidic property of that is going to tend to bring that down naturally as you introduce more trichlor and dichlor into the water. When we're talking Cal Hypo, we're talking the reverse thinking on that. Cal Hypo is high in pH. For instance, the granular or powder versions of Cal Hypo can run anywhere from 10 to 12 on the pH scale. Depending on the strength of the Cal Hypo. And so because it's higher in pH, you're going to tend to want to run your pools in your total alkalinity at the lower ranges. So we talk about 7.2 to 7.4 with 7.3 being the sweet spot, so to speak, with pH. And for your alkalinity, you can run it as low as 60 to 80 parts per million, 100 on the high end, with 80 being kind of the target for your total alkalinity. And that will help out as far as when you're distributing Cal Hypo directly into the body of water, where you don't see a lot of that cloudy water issue. And the cloudy water issue with introduction of Cal Hypo into the water mostly has to do with water chemistry. Your pH is too high, and that calcium, when the Cal Hypo hits the water, the calcium is going to start coming out of solution a little bit and doing some of that cloudy water. It's going to clear up eventually, especially with circulation, because you're going to be running your pump when you're adding that Cal Hypo directly into the water. And if you got your pH and your alkalinity where you need them to be, then you tend to see a lot less of that cloudy water issue.
On a liner, on a vinyl liner pool, can it just be thrown onto the vinyl liner? It'll be fine.
So obviously, with the vinyl liner, your biggest concern is that anything's going to settle at the bottom of the liner and start to do any staining or any damage to the liner. So when you're distributing Cal Hypo in, you want to make sure the ranges for Cal Hypo with the vinyl liner are a little different than, say, with your in-ground gunite, plaster pools. So we want the pH to be a little bit higher. So it does dissolve that granular Cal Hypo, that powder Cal Hypo a little quicker, and you don't see a lot of the residue hitting the bottom of the pool. But brushing with Cal Hypo usage is something that you're going to be religious about as well, to get some of that residual that may make its way to the bottom of the pool to circulate and get some of that turbidity going to get that dissolve that we want to see, so we don't have any residual sitting on the bottom of the pool with those vinyl liners.
Okay. And I have a couple of guys asking about the amount of calcium added, and we're going to get into that in just a second, and I'm going to ask you that question. But guys, I want you to remember that in our industry, every product that you add to a pool has a byproduct.
Yep.
So nothing that we add to the pool does not have a side effect. Everything has a side effect, right? So if you add liquid chlorine, you're adding salt, you're adding TDSs. If you add trichlor, you're adding CYA to the pool. Same thing with Cal Hypo. It's going to have some things that you're going to have to work with. And I wouldn't necessarily tell you, okay, just because it adds calcium to the pool, are you automatically going to go, oh, that's not the product for me? Because if that's the thought process, then that should be the thought process with trichlor and dichlor. It's like, okay, that's too much CYA, so I can't use that. So I believe that Cal Hypo is a good product, guys. But just like I tell you with everything, you have to put a game plan in how you're going to manage that. So if you are using dichlor and trichlor, you have to put a game plan in place to be able to empty that water, because you're going to have to get rid of that CYA. And so everything is manageable. Just put a game plan in place. And I'll give you guys the example of what JJ from Flawless Pools, our guy from our podcast, are bringing us when it comes to water chemistry. And so one of the things that he does is he ordered some of these new Cal Hypo tabs. And what he's going to do is he's going to manage the pool with the Cal Hypo and the Cal Hypo tabs. If he sees that his calcium level starts to go up, then he can switch over to either liquid or, some tabs. And what can happen is he can extend the life of that water out. But that's the point, guys. The point is that you have to have a game plan and put a game plan in place to manage the products that you're using. And I believe that these tabs are definitely, a game changer, and it comes in a perfect time to be able to kind of go, hey, we're having an issue with these products. Let's make a change. Let's get educated on it and do it. And now's the perfect time to do that. So we're going to get into that. We're going to answer those questions with regards to the calcium level, guys. But you also have to remember that there's a lot of places where the calcium level coming from the faucet is really, really low. So Texas, it could be anywhere from 30 to 70 coming out of the faucet. So you can use Cal Hypo, and it's going to be really a long time before you start to have issues with calcium in the water, because your tap water is constantly coming in at that low level. So guys, I'm going to answer those questions. I just saw you asking that question as we were going through, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it.